Hi, welcome back to HVAC Talk with Huff. I'm Huff. Today we're going to talk about something a little different than HVAC. I was recently at a retreat with folks from the company that I work with, and in that retreat they did this exercise where we went around of the people in our team, and we talked about their superpowers. In other words, what made them really help the team, what it is that about them that really helped the team and what we did. And it just really helped us to really just kind of brag on each other for a few minutes, and it was a really great, it was actually enjoyable until it got to me. I didn't like that part. That was kind of awkward. And when they were talking about the things they thought that I brought to the table, it was nice to hear. But they said, okay, is there anything else? And right before they went on to the next person, one young lady spoke up and says, his faith. I believe his faith is who he is. And that's one of his superpowers, because I believe that it's his faith that keeps him grounded. I believe it's his faith that allows him to be calm. Even when things are hectic, even when everybody else is getting spun up, he doesn't. He's always a voice of reason to us. And so I believe that has a lot to do with who he is. And so I think that faith has to be a part of that. And I was just, I wanted to crawl under the table. I wanted to cry. I didn't know what to do. But it was a very humbling moment. And I got to thinking about, how has my faith shaped my career? I haven't always been a nice person. I haven't always been a good employee. But God has made me something that I could not be on my own. And so I thought that maybe there might be some out there that might want to hear how faith has shaped my career and made me who I am, and maybe encourage you as well. I know there are a lot of folks out there that know and love God. I talk to people in the workplace. I talk to people out when we were out, at different events. I was recently at the HVAC symposium, got to talking about our faith down there with a couple of business owners and just marvelous people. And so I think it's something, some people think it's like a taboo subject, but it's really not. There's nothing from stopping us and sharing. It's my faith that has actually made me more open to help others regardless. It doesn't close me off. Some people think that when you are a Christian and you follow Christ, that all of a sudden that you can't work with these other people, or that these other people disagree with you, or they disagree with the lifestyle, or whatever the case may be, that talking about your faith is going to actually separate you further. And I found that that's not really the case. Not when we live our faith and we do it in the way that the Bible prescribes. So I'm just going to share a couple things with you about how my faith has shaped my HVAC career and given me opportunities that the old Huff would have never got, because the old Huff wasn't a very nice guy. The first thing is this: I believe that God made the heavens and the earth. I believe he made people in his image. And because of that, when Jesus says to love your neighbor as yourself, I realize from the biblical authority that every human being is made in God's image, even the ones that hate everything that I love, or maybe even love the things that I don't like. Right? The people that are complete opposite of me, they still have value. You see, if you truly believe that God made people in his image, then we realize that everybody has equal value in his eyes, that everybody has immense value. And so it makes us look at people differently. And so love your neighbor as yourself is not about your neighbor, the people that you get along with that think like you. But matter of fact, Jesus was asked by Pharisees, which were kind of like biblical lawyers, what's the greatest law? And he says, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. All the laws hang on these two things. And then one of them, being a lawyer, says, well, who's my neighbor? Like, if I could identify what a neighbor is, maybe I can disqualify some people from me having to love them. And Jesus told him a story about the Good Samaritan. And back then, in those days, those Pharisees, they despised the Samaritans. And Jesus really cut to their heart, because he's saying that your neighbor is even the person you despise the most. You still got to love them. So God calls us to love people because they have immense value and they have worth. And we need to see everybody, regardless of their beliefs, as that way. And if we start treating each other like that, our workplaces change. Number two is this: the Bible also tells us to do everything as unto God. And what does that mean? That means God's ever present, and everything I do, he sees. So even when there's nobody looking over my shoulder, even when that homeowner's not paying attention, or even when I'm in that crawl space and nobody can see me, I don't cut corners. We shouldn't cut corners. Why? Because we need to do everything that we do knowing that God is watching, knowing that he's ever present. And so I don't want to do anything to displease him or disappoint him. And so when we do everything as unto God, meaning that we do everything in a conscious effort of knowing that he is there, knowing that he sees. And so regardless of whether people's watching or not, we should always do the right thing because we know that we're doing it as unto God, as if we were doing it in his house. And so that should shape also who we are, because when we start operating like that, then there's a level of integrity that sometimes other people that don't see life that way may not have. Another thing is that that has really shaped, especially in the last few years with all the stuff coming out. We're looking at we're looking at things happen to our climate. We look at the world and how it's being littered, and also taking care of our atmosphere, air we breathe, things like that. When I go back to the original, when I go back to the very first book of the Bible, I'm reminded that God created the earth, and then he made man, and he gave man the task of working and keeping the garden, and that represents really the earth. God placed man on this earth. We are we are unlike any other creature on earth. And God gave us the command of working the land and taking care of it and keeping it. And so for that reason, I look at things like when I'm, recovering refrigerant, I do believe that, if we keep venting and we keep, smog and pollution going on, that, we want our grandchildren to be able to breathe. And so when I really bring into my view the understanding that, God's given me a responsibility as a human being on this earth to work on it and keep it and take care of it, then that makes me want to do my best. That makes me not want to reject solid fundamental practices like in recovery and things like that, making sure that I just don't go out here venting refrigerant because nobody's looking. We need to do our best. We need to recycle. We need to take care of this earth. And so that has really shaped who I am in my HVAC practices. Another thing that the Bible teaches that is something that I'm very mindful of is we need to submit to authority. The Bible's clear is that we are to submit to authority, whether they're nice to us or not. Being obedient isn't an option. The only time that we're given the okay to not be obedient to the people over us is if they ask us to do something that would break a greater law. In other words, it's one thing to have a supervisor, but if my supervisor is asking me to break a federal law by venting the refrigerant because he doesn't want to go bring me another recovery jug, then I'm, that's breaking a greater law, and we don't want to do that. And so if my supervisor, who is over me in authority, asks me to do something that breaks a bigger law, then that's when I'm going to say, no, I can't do that. People who follow Christ should be the best employees out there. We should be the people want to hire because we should be doing things knowing that God is watching. We should be ethical, right? We should have I know in Proverbs it talks about the honest, the honest scale, so to speak, right? Having the honest balance. In other words, when we weigh things out, we don't cheat, right? And we should have the highest level of ethics of anyone that we work with. I mean, we should, and not because we think highly of ourselves. It's just because we know that God knows and he sees, and it should drive us to be the most ethical people in the workplace. Another thing is the Bible tells us that we're not to, esteem ourselves higher than others, right? That we should esteem others higher than ourselves. I have actually watched trainers train technicians and speak down to them as if these people are the lowest people. And it's almost, I felt like sometimes, I feel like I've watched trainers in the past, sometimes it's almost like they're making fun of technicians for what they don't know. And that's that's just not how you're never going to encourage anybody in this business being like that. And I've just met too many people in this business that just thought so highly of themselves and thought so lowly of others, and they just come across as arrogant and rude. And that's just not how we ought to be. And so I always try to train, and I've been doing training for many years, and I always try to train from a perspective that all I'm trying to do is share what I do know. And I'm sure there are things that you run into that I haven't known, because life is about experience. And there may be a 10-year technician out there that maybe has experienced something in this newer equipment that I haven't yet experienced, even though I've been doing it 33 years. Right. So it doesn't make that 10-year technician smarter than me, nor does it doesn't make me smarter than him, because I've had experiences that he or she hasn't had. Right. Life's about experience, and all we do is we share from ours and trying to encourage others. Say, listen, I'm going to explain to you what I have learned in this business. If it's something you already know and you want to add, maybe you got something that might help and lend to the class, please make it known. If it's something that you haven't seen or haven't known, and I'm not saying it in a way that is helping you understand it, please, ask me to say it differently, or ask me maybe to take a different approach. Because the fact is, when we're doing training, all we're trying to do is help raise the level of awareness in this business and help folks. We can literally make people's lives better when we in training if we go about it the right way. I tell people like this: I don't know if you've ever had a unit kick your butt. Like, you ever been working on a unit and you couldn't figure it out and it kicked your butt, and you went home, you were like, you thought about it, you couldn't enjoy your evening, right? I mean, when you got home, the kids were on your nerves, and your spouse was on your nerves, because all you could think about was this thing that kicked your butt, and it ruins your evening. And you know that you got to go back the next day and try to figure this thing out. Well, the thing is if we can actually train folks and help them in such a way that they have a less amount of those experiences, then we can actually help make people's lives better. And so we should train not from a point of arrogance looking down, but instead we should train in a level of trying to bring people up and raise them up to a higher level. Not because we're better, but just because we're sharing from our experience. And so we can help people a lot if we train from the right perspective. Another thing, when I look at HVAC, I think about the physics involved, right? Think about some of the laws of physics. You're probably hearing my dog in the background, by the way. I got 2 wiener dogs, and they're not happy right now. But anyway, let's keep going. Physics. You ever think about the laws of physics, right? Heat moves from hot to cold, seeks equilibrium. Pressure moves from high pressure to low pressure. There are these laws of physics that are in play, and we use them, right? So people that are really, really smart, people like Willis Carrier, that was able to kind of harness an understanding of physics and enabled us to do what we do, right? I think another law of, like, when you have a fluid that is moving, and that process of entrainment, that it takes in that air around it, because that fluid is moving, in a way that it sucks in air around it. When we look at how a gas burner works, right, and that process of entrainment that happens. I mean, how cool is that? We get to play with physics, and I believe these laws of physics are immutable; they don't change. And I believe that they don't change because I believe that God was the one that established them. I love teaching the physics of HVAC, because I don't tell people, like, I'm not, I don't like preach to people in training. I don't say, well, God did this. I just say, here's the laws of physics, and they don't change, and we can take these for granted about how this works. It's a beautiful thing that they don't change. That way we know that as we learn these laws of physics that'll help us in our careers, that we're always able to kind of harness that information and use it to troubleshoot. But in my heart, I know who made this earth, and I know who made this world, and I know who created these physics. And to me, it's just like I'm bringing him glory by showcasing these laws of physics, right? I like watching people, some people training are really animated, like Ty Brenneman, right? You watch that guy train, it's just amazing how he breaks some of these things down, and he has props and all this stuff. But to me, I love how animated he is, because I'm thinking, you're just showcasing the glory of God in physics and how it works, right? I just love that. Another thing is that the Bible tasks us with taking care of the widows, the poor people, the less, the disenfranchised. And God's given me great opportunities over the years to be able to take, my knowledge in HVAC and help folks. And also, I've partnered together with other HVAC folks and gathered together and went to the home of someone who couldn't afford the work to be done. And we gathered together and we did it, for just the good of humanity. And it's, and I'll tell you, all the people who helped weren't Christians, right? But they knew that this person needed help and they were willing to lend their time. And again, I don't, I'm a pastor, so I do preach, obviously, but we don't have to go to our workplace and preach. All we got to do is just live these principles. And you will find that God will bring opportunities to you where you'll have an opportunity to share. And so what I do is I just live the principles and wait for God to make an opportunity. Had a young man one time come to me out in a warehouse when I was working at York, and he had his life was real tore up and had some real problems going on. He was fighting depression real bad, and he believed in God. And he said, I just don't know. He said, can you pray for me? And I said, absolutely. Do you want to pray right now? He said, yes. And so he and I were huddled over in the corner of the warehouse, and I prayed for him right there. And there's been times people walk to my office and shut the door. Huff, can I talk to you? Right? I didn't go out there preaching that everybody, you need Jesus and call everybody sinners. All you got to do is just live the principles. And people will see the kindness in you. They'll see God's Spirit in you, and you will have opportunities to share. And so you don't have to be preachy. You just got to live them out. So we've had great opportunities to take care of folks. We are taught to encourage others. We talked about this in the training about, esteeming others higher than yourselves and not taking a high position of yourself. And we're taught to encourage, right? And help folks and mentor, right? We see even in the Bible, the Apostle Paul, he mentored Timothy, right? There's several mentors. Barnabas, right? He was, whose name meant son of encouragement. He mentored John Mark. Right. And so this, we are called to mentor others, and you can't mentor others when you look down your nose at them. Right. Because they'll see that. And lastly, the Bible talks about the fruit of the Spirit, kindness, meekness, all those things, gentleness. If we live out those, right, the fruit of the Spirit means this is evidence that the Spirit is in you. If you live out the fruit of the Spirit in your life, you will have opportunities to talk about your faith. And so my faith has shaped my career in so many different ways, whether it's my love for physics because I believe I know the one who designed it all. He's given me opportunities because I always try my best to be a good employee by recognizing authority and God's command for me to obey authority, even when I didn't like it. Right. And so God has, I do believe that I've been given some amazing opportunities in my life for no other reason than because God was there for me and helped me. And I think that we need to be someone that other people want to be around. And I think that living out our faith is the way to do that. And so I just felt like I wanted to share how my faith has shaped my career and who I am. And it's why I still to this day, I love HVAC. I love helping people. And honestly, I'm now working with Rewiring America. And because they exist to help low to middle income families be able to get high efficiency heat pumps, to electrify, to be able to save money. And I love that. And it's amazing. It's an amazing story of how so many people are coming together that are so vastly different. I mean, I was worried that when I go to this company that is so much different than I am. And what's amazing is that when we just treat people with kindness and gentleness and love, they will want to work with us. And I have met so many wonderful people. And I know some of them don't believe anything like I do, but that's okay. They still have value. And you know what's amazing is they still see value in me, right? A lot of times Christians will make you think that people that aren't, they hate us. And there might be some, but I found there's a lot of good people in this world that if you treat them with love and kindness and gentleness, that they will want to work with you. And it's been an amazing journey. By the way, I've also met some people who do love Jesus and didn't quite know how to talk about it, didn't know quite how to make it known without being obnoxious that they love Jesus. And I've had some great conversations over the last few months about that very thing, about being able to share your faith without doing it in such a way that turns people off, sharing your faith in such a way that wants to draw people closer to you, not further away from you. And so my prayer is that if you know Jesus, um, that you will let your light shine in every aspect of your life. And I pray that this maybe helps you to be more confident in the workplace of sharing your faith, and also maybe helps you in the workplace to think more about, instead of compartmentalizing your life, instead of realizing, that I'm just called to love Jesus and to live out these principles in my life, in every aspect of my life, my work life, my home life, my neighbor life, my church life. Um, there's no compartments in our lives. There's just our life. I don't have an HVAC bucket and a church bucket. I just got me. I am who I am, and God's called me to do both things. And so to me, I can't separate one from the other because it all intertwines. And that's by God's design, and that's perfectly okay. I pray this helps you along the way. Go and be blessed. If you ever want to get a hold of me, my email will be down in the description. Hit me up. I'd love to talk to you about it. And have a great one.